while this video is called the never-ending Pierre-Luc Dubois saga, I do feel like there is some light at the end of the tunnel as to maybe in the near future the constant media attention and off-ice discussion about where he'll be going next and what he's asking for. I feel like that is coming to an end relatively soon. Maybe not this offseason, but relatively soon that is going to come to an end. But before I get to that conclusion, I do want to go back earlier in his career just to see how he got this reputation in the first place. Now, before his skates even hit NHL ice, Pierre-Luc Dubois has always been someone that has been talked about, and early on in his career, I don't know if it was necessarily his fault, as he was drafted 3rd overall by the Columbus Blue Jackets in 2016, and that was initially seen as a reach over the general consensus 3rd overall best player in that draft, Jesse Puljujarvi. So obviously that's not Pierre-Luc Dubois doing anything to bring that attention onto himself. That was more Jarmo Kekalainen and his front office making a bit of a controversial draft pick, and Pierre-Luc Dubois' name just happened to be on that pick. Now he gets in the NHL and he plays on his entry-level deal, and those years go pretty smoothly for him both on and off the ice. There's no real drama that he stirs up in those years. He makes the playoffs in all 3 of his entry-level years, playing with the Breadman himself, and he was a driving force even after the Columbus Max Exodus era that they had, where Panarin, Bobrovsky, Duchesne, and John Davidson all left in the same offseason. That next year, when the world stopped and went in the bubble, Pierre-Luc Dubois was a driving force in that bubble series against Toronto before they ran out of gas against Tampa. After his entry-level deal ended in Columbus, however, that is when things start to get a little murky. The first thing that was a little off-putting was, I believe, a Pierre LeBrun tweet about how it was a little strange that it was taking as long as it was to get Dubois signed to another contract. Then, like 2 hours later, he would sign a 2-year deal with an average annual value with a cap hit, I should say, of $5.5 million. So it seemed like at first there was some cause for some tension, but it looked like it was resolved soon after. However, the very next day, it would become rumored among the reports that he wants out of Columbus, something that John Tortorella would confirm on a radio spot pretty much, I think, the day before the regular season started, throwing pretty much everything into chaos. And the 5 games he did play for Columbus that season, his body language wasn't exactly the best, and that obviously culminated in the last shift he ever played in a Blue Jackets uniform, where he got on the ice, just kind of skated around for however long he was, and then just chose to leave. That would get him benched by John Tortorella for the rest of the game, and he would be traded pretty much before the Jackets could play another game. And so he basically forced a trade by essentially stopped playing. He stopped playing for the Blue Jackets. He said, I'm not going to play for you guys anymore, so you might as well trade me. And so they did. Pierre Dubois would be traded along with a 2022 third-round pick to the Winnipeg Jets for Patrick Laine and Jack Roslovic, both of which were having their own issues with Winnipeg. So it was basically a thing of 2 teams trading their headaches, hoping that they could deal with the other's headache a little better. Now, for his on-ice production with Winnipeg after a rough first season, it has its ups and downs, obviously, but I think his on-ice production with the Winnipeg Jets has been pretty darn good. Nothing that screams, future Hall of Fame or anything, but definitely exactly what you would want out of a solid second-line center. He just posted a career-high 63 points in this season in 71 games played, 27 goals, 36 assists, but some of the off-ice stuff lands him in headlines in the off-seasons for Winnipeg once again. So last off-season, he was kind of dropping these passive-aggressive hints that basically said that he wanted to leave, where he said he wouldn't be signing a long-term deal in unrestricted free agency in 2024, and his agent just straight up said that Pierre-Luc Dubois would like to play in Montreal, and if that wasn't the case, and his agent going out there saying that, you would think that would mean Pierre-Luc Dubois would just fire his agent, but he didn't, so that means Pat Brisson, PLD's agent, was speaking on behalf of him when he said, yeah, he'd like to play in Montreal. And this year, the reports are that he has submitted just a straight-up trade request to get him out of Winnipeg. Now, the return from anybody except for Montreal probably isn't going to be as good, since They pretty much know that he's only going to be there for a year before he just goes to the Canadiens in free agency. And the Canadiens, what's their incentive to give a killer return to Winnipeg now? Because they know that they can just wait for a year, and Pierre-Luc Dubois will pretty much just walk to them in free agency. This isn't like something we see like with the Matthew Tkachuk deal, where yes, teams knew he wasn't going to be signing long-term in Calgary and would probably just leave after a year if they were to sign him for a year. But Matthew Tkachuk still submitted a whole list of teams that he was willing to sign long-term with. Teams knew that there was competition for his services. With Montreal, it really does seem like they are the only long-term suitor that Pierre-Luc Dubois has any interest in. So there's no bidding war. There's no incentive for the Canadiens to really make it worth Winnipeg's while. And if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you probably don't want to take a bad deal for Pierre-Luc Dubois quite yet. Now, if Winnipeg gets desperate, maybe they even hold on to him until this trade deadline. Obviously, Winnipeg at some point they're probably just going to take what they can get, as they know that it probably wouldn't be best to let him walk for nothing, especially with Winnipeg seemingly going to be starting to get in the phases of a rebuild pretty soon, if not this offseason. But now, so it's pretty clear that even if Pierre-Luc Dubois is traded somewhere other than Montreal this offseason, he probably is just going to sign in Montreal long-term whenever he can. Now, for how much it's going to cost Pierre-Luc Dubois is a bit of a different story. There are reports out now that he wants a $9 million average annual value deal. So, for what Pierre-Luc Dubois brings, I don't think that's anywhere near worth it. I mentioned that his career high points that he just got this season is 63 with in 71 games played, so which again, very solid point production, but I don't know if that as a career high coming off of your best season screams a player who definitely deserves taking up a $9 million cap hit on your team, especially if you're Montreal, where you're building this young core, and while you could afford Pierre-Luc Dubois at that $9 million range now, do you really want that for long term, hampering some young guys' extensions that you might have to sign? So overall, that's where we are with the Pierre-Luc Dubois saga. I feel like a lot of the off-ice discussion about him is going to end when he signs a long-term deal with the Canadiens. What price that long-term deal is might be a cause for discussion, but we talk about, players on maybe getting too much money on too long of a contract every offseason. That's not necessarily special, but it is something a little strange with Pierre-Luc Dubois, how it seems like every offseason now there's something about him and wanting out of the team that he's in, and especially with Winnipeg, how he never really seemed like he always knew that he was going to get out of there as soon as possible, and he's actively trying to get the team to trade him now. That's what the reports are. So yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments below about his career so far and what you think holds the future for him. I think maybe in Montreal he could be, maybe if he's content with where he is, maybe he finally unlocks that potential he's shown in flashes and becomes that franchise center that is worth that $9 million deal. But I honestly, for so far what he's done in his career, very nice career on ice, but the off-ice headache he's given both the Blue Jackets and the Winnipeg Jets certainly raised some eyebrows among some of the hockey world. Thank you all for watching me this far. Leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more like it. I will see you at the next one.